Well, time now to go straight to the interview to get to know how Uchumi is doing and where we are headed. Terry.
Thank you very much, Michael. Now, as I told you at the start of tonight's show, last week Uchumi Supermarkets announced that it had posted a full-year net loss of 3.4 billion shillings, marking a new low for a supermarket that has pulled out of the jaws of receivership barely 5 years ago. Now, tonight we speak to the man charged with the responsibility of putting Uchumi back onto the path of profitability, Dr. Julius Kipng'etich. He was until September the 4th the Chief Operating Officer of Equity Group Holdings, where he served as a Director of Equity Bank between June 27, 2008 and January 5th, 2015. He previously served as the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Wildlife Service and the Managing Director of the Investment Promotion Center. Dr. Kipng'etich is an alumnus of the University of Nairobi and the Sarehe Boys Center. We'd like you to be part of this conversation. Send us your comments on 22422, that's via SMS. And if you're joining us through Twitter, the hashtag is Citizen Business. The handles are at Citizen TV Kenya and at Terry Ann Chebet. Welcome to Citizen Business Center, Mr. Kipng'etich. I guess the question I'd like to kick us off with is, why did you leave Equity Bank?
I was looking for a challenge. I think Uchumi presented itself at the right time for me, when this was a company which was expected to modernize retail and wholesale business in the country. If you look at Vision 2030, one of the items in the economic pillar is retail and wholesale. And if you look at the history of Uchumi, Uchumi was started in 1976 by the government of Kenya to actually perform that role. Unfortunately, it never really caught up to do that role over time. Occasionally it did it, but it was not consistent. If you look at the history of Uchumi, Uchumi is actually falling for the 4th time. And I want to assure Kenyans that this will be the last. The systems we are going to put in place, the governance structures, the technology we are going to put in place, Uchumi will never fall again.
All right, and of course we'll go through all these promises you're making, so to speak, at this point, step by step, as we have this conversation. But I just want to find out, just looking through our social media handles and the SMSs that are coming through, so many problems being raised by Kenyans. But I'm curious, 90 days later, what keeps you up at night about Uchumi?
It's the customer. Uchumi is there to make sure that the customer is served. We look at ourselves as a platform to deliver certain goods to the people of Kenya. And behind those goods are suppliers. One of the greatest frustrations in Uchumi is that the suppliers had not been paid. When I arrived in Uchumi, I had been given a figure that the supplier liability is 750 million shillings. Actually, looking at the books, it was much higher.
2.2.
It was 2.8 actually.
2.8 billion.
2.8 billion. And so we have been able to service a lot of that debt.
How much of that debt have you serviced?
We now have 1.7 billion. And we have a very clear path on how to clear that 1.7. Within the next 3 to 6 months, that figure should have been cleared.
Tell us how you want to clear that figure. We
are looking at reorganizing the balance sheet of Uchumi. In the balance sheet, there are some non-core assets. There are 3 of them. One is a 20-acre piece of land along Thika Road. So that is already being planned for sale. Our store on Ngong Road, Ngong Hyper, is also planned for a sale and lease back. We will remain at the site, but as tenants to a landlord who are yet to identify. And of course our land on Langata Road. I know they have some issues.
And it's in court now?
No, it's not in court.
It's not in court.
KA put a caveat. Not exactly a caveat. It was just buyer beware, but it was mischievous, and we have protested as much, and we have had a title since 1995, and nobody has ever objected, including KA. So we are good to go. All
right. So once you've done off with the supplier, the debt you owe the suppliers, what will your liquidity position be like?
We are hoping to raise, by liquidating those assets, around 4 billion. Now, around 2 billion will deal with suppliers, and then the other 2 billion will deal with growth. We want to grow to what our natural size should be. If you look at Uchumi's position today, it's number 4 in the market from number 1 position. So we have lost our competitiveness over time, and we want to claw back our position. And we believe that with that kind of liquidity, and we inject it to Uchumi, it will be back to a reasonable position. But we are going to scale Uchumi in a very calculated way. We are looking at the risks involved. And if you grow too fast, there's a risk. And that's one of the challenges that Uchumi went through, especially in the last 3-4 years. It grew too fast. And so therefore, its working capital grew too thin. And so therefore, that's why the stores were not stocked as it should be. And
what is the current status of the 896 million from the rights issue?
It was used supposedly for expansion.
Supposedly,
yes,
being the key
and
word.
I'm using that word deliberately. We have, for the period I've been there, we have been trying to trace actually where was that growth done, and we are not seeing it. So it's still subject of investigation, but I want to tell the shareholders that personally I was disappointed that the managers who managed Uchumi at the time did not use those resources for the purpose for which they stated in the information memorandum when they were raising the money from the right issue. So it was disappointing, but we are still trying to trace, because if you say you used it for expansion in Uganda, the worth of Uganda operations was not worth the money that was injected in Uganda. And
so what would be the cause of action after that?
Okay, there are 2 options out of it. One is a professional thing. When you do something, when you say you are going to do something, please do it. So there's some professional misconduct. The other one is a criminal misconduct, because you see, if you can't trace where the money is, somebody has to surely account for it. So we are looking at those 2 options, and of course the relevant authorities will pick it up.
All right. But how much money, around how much money do you think you need to turn around Uchumi? And I know you have a strategy that I would like us to talk about in just a moment, but how much money are you looking at?
Okay. The need for Uchumi money will come in tranches. The first tranche is to deal with suppliers, all debt, 1.8 billion gone. So I'm trying to fundraise that. It's a mixture of several things. Initially, I'm going for bank debt to deal with essentials. So that should be around 800 million. So that I will get. Then the other 1 billion or so from liquidation of assets. And that's why we are fast tracking, especially in Gong Hyper. So that should bring in, probably the first quarter of next year, to bring in 1 billion. That clears suppliers. Okay, and that's all debt of Uchumi. Then we also need to open new stores. Nairobi, we are underserving Nairobi as Uchumi. And so we want to open more stores in Nairobi and more stores in Mombasa. Reason being, 60% of our GDP is in Nairobi, 10% is in Mombasa. So if you cover Mombasa and Nairobi well, you have covered 7% of GDP of Kenya. So we need to have strong presence. We also need to strengthen our presence in Kisumu, and we strengthen our presence in Nakuru. So those 2 towns are critical. So now once we do that, then the next stage is to go for smaller stores. Our towns cannot support very large stores. So we want to go for medium-sized stores, but it's a model which we are going to disclose much later. We are working on the final details, but we will go for smaller stores.
All right. Now, under your new smart shopping strategy, what exactly are we looking at?
Technology has to be injected into retail, and if you look at all over the world, the people who have demonstrated how retail works at that level are people like Amazon. Uchumi must go in that direction, or any other retailer in the world, which you are dealing with home deliveries. Okay, because in the next 3 years, 80% of all phones in the market in the world will be smartphones. Don't worry about the quality, but people will have a smartphone on their hands, 80% of them in the next 3 years. Now with that power on their hands, we need to enhance our capability to serve them using a medium like that. And we are preparing Uchumi for that eventuality. And that's the direction everybody will have to go.
And of course, you've been quoted as saying in 5 years you expect Uchumi to be the Walmart of Africa, so to speak. But going the technology way, does that now mean you are changing the target audience for your target market for Uchumi?
No, no, no. We are not changing the target audience. We are just following the dynamics of the market. If you look at the median age in Kenya is 18 years. What it means is that half the population of Kenya is below the age of 18, the other half is above the age of 18. Compare this to the country with the highest median in the world, which is Japan. Japan, the median age is 47. So if you look at our current model, it tends to serve an older population. But we need to prepare ourselves for the young generation, the Y generation. They are thinking differently. So if we don't provide for them online platforms for shopping, they will go elsewhere. They could even shop anywhere in the world and it will be delivered by logistics companies. So we have to move into the future with that young generation in mind. You can imagine if in the next 5 years, when the Z generation, those who are below the age of 15, arrive in the workplace, they will arrive there in the next 5 years. If you are not ready with technology solutions, they will ignore you.
What about the costs involved, though, especially when it comes to deliveries? And one of the success factors for Walmart, so to speak, which is, without a doubt, the world's largest and the world's most successful retail chain, but their delivery, they actually own the fleets themselves, so that's a cost factor. And they own the technology behind the distribution as well. What are your thoughts around how much it would cost to do that?
We want to de-risk Uchumi. The logistics will be done by other companies. Okay, as will our core business is to just make sure that we provide the platform and the warehousing. That is where our core business will be. Logistics and delivery we can do with other partners. Okay, even the technology, the underlying technology can be even brought from cloud. So we are going to be the aggregator of the business model. So we will be at the center of that business ecosystem, and then the rest of it will be served by other people. How
about the cost of the product? And still buying on the Walmart model and Amazon as well, and some of the online platforms, it's the discount stores and the cost, the cost advantage to the buyer. Is Uchumi going to head that direction as well?
Yes. You see, retail by its nature is a low cost business. So what you need to target is high volume. And we already are working on mechanisms to increase the volume of delivery by Uchumi significantly, and so that then we can charge a low margin. As when we say we are going to be the Walmart, Walmart is just purely based on that model of big volume, low margin. And that's the direction we have to go.
All right. I'd like to involve our audience who are sending in, quite a bit of messages from across the country. Somebody here from Eldoret saying Uchumi has to check on their staffing because they always look idle. That's Emma from Eldoret. We've got somebody else here saying Uchumi was an agent of selling safe gas in Kenya. After many people bought the cylinders, it has stopped selling the same. And there's also quite a number of people saying they do not find what they want to buy in the Uchumi shelves. What would you tell them?
Okay, I agree. Our stores are not fully stocked now, but we are accelerating the process. And we are targeting Christmas shopping. So by next week, most of our shops will have what you want. And we are really accelerating that process. This is because there was a point where Uchumi neglected its suppliers. We have already engaged most of them. We had even a town hall meeting with them last week, and they agreed that they are now coming on board after I assured them that I will pay. So most of our suppliers are back on track, and including those items of gas. I agree, some of our staff are not yet aligned. From January, all of them go through a culture change program. And this culture change program will also include making sure that they are strong in customer service. So there's a lot going on. We have offloaded some staff who didn't fit, and so that is already passed now.
Talking about staff, what did you do about the alleged cartel of senior managers who were supplying internally?
My first memo when I reached Uchumi was to outlaw that. There was a concept that staff could supply so long as they declare. And I told them that's completely unethical. You can't run a store and be a supplier to the same store. That transaction will never be arm's length. So my first memo to all staff who are doing business is stop it, and if you can't stop it, you must resign. If I ever find you, I'll dismiss you.
All right.
It's as simple as that.
All right. So I just want to find out, you've had a very successful brand as a CEO, what you did at the Wildlife Services, and I'm curious, if Uchumi goes down, you go down with it. How close are you tying your personal brand to the Uchumi brand?
I want to assure the country and all investors, Uchumi will never go down. That I guarantee you. The changes we have made already in the last 90 days are solid. Okay? And we have closed all stores which are bleeding. We have offloaded excess staff. That's already done. We have written to all the landlords about renegotiating rents. We are now engaging suppliers to make sure that the goods come to the stores, and all the liabilities, we have already itemized them, and we are liquidating assets. So Uchumi is on track, full recovery in the first quarter of next year. And once that is done, I want to assure Kenyans that your investment in Uchumi is safe, and so my brand will be safe too.
All right. I want to take one question from one of your staffers in Uganda who says after the branch was closed down, they have not had any communication from management. What can you respond to her?
There was a delay in engaging the Uganda team, but as we speak now, we have 3 of our top managers in Uganda. They engaged the receiver manager today, and then tomorrow they are going to engage staff. We have already allocated resources to give them their terminal dues as soon as possible, possibly before the end of this week. In Tanzania, we have already completed the process, so this week all of them will be offloaded. What I want to tell them is Uchumi will be back in those 2 countries. We have a database of those employees, and when we have reorganized ourselves in Kenya, we will re-enter those markets and we'll give them first priority.
All right. How long is your term as CEO, and what promises are you making to Kenyans who associate, Uchumi with such patriotism as one of the, as the premier or the first supermarket this country had?
My contract is for 3 years, and with the option of renewal. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. But I want to assure Kenyans that Uchumi will play its rightful role as per the objects for which it was created in 1976, which was to promote retail and wholesale and a platform for goods which are Kenyan. That is why when I went there, I changed the theme to King of Fresh. The reason why is because Kenyans like eating things from the farm. And Uchumi will be that platform where you get fresh things from the farm. And you will see the goods we are going to display on our shelves will be very much Kenyan. And so we want to avoid a situation where we are bringing in a lot of food from abroad, which is canned, tinned. That should not be the direction. The direction is we must promote Kenya. And if you look at the objects for retail and wholesale in the economic pillar, it is all to promote Kenya. And we believe as Uchumi, we are the right platform to promote Kenya. So every time you come to Uchumi, you're actually promoting Kenya. And you will see the Kenyanness as we go along.
All right.
Yes.
As we wind up, there's a picture that was pretty famous online a couple of months ago, and we are just going to play it for you now. Those children playing with Uchumi pepper bugs, I heard Uchumi did something about it. Tell us a little bit about that.
When we saw this picture in social media, it was very amusing, because these are kids in Uganda who had a social game among themselves, and when it was brought to our attention by Mohammed Ersi of Heritage Hotels, we took it upon ourselves to engage these children, and we gave them the right uniforms, and you can see them there. So HIT FC in Uganda, those kids are happy, and we in Uchumi are happy too. All
right, thank you so much. Before we wind up, one very quick question. What would the ideal number of staff be when Uchumi is at optimum?
We have already reached that point. We have now 2,400 members of staff in Kenya. We offloaded initially in Uganda and Tanzania 746, And then in Kenya, we offloaded 1,231. So we now have close to 2,400 staff. That is the ideal level. There will be seasonal variations, but we have also made arrangements to deal with seasonal variations. Like, for example, we are going to high season, we will recruit a few, but we have a database of those we have flooded, and we'll give them first priority.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the time you've taken to talk to us tonight. Dr. Julius Kipng'etich, the CEO of Uchumi Supermarkets. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more right after this break. Don't go too far.